Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about Linux projects such as a distribution, a desktop environment application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I've got a fantastic bunch of people. I've got Swift, Adam Grubbs, Jinda, and Mike Chilson. How is everybody?
Excellent.
Doing good, man.
Fantastic. So glad you guys came back. I was gone on a vacation for a couple weeks. Nothing bad happened in my absence here on the Cubicle Estate, so that's good. If you have not done so, be sure to do the straw poll. It has to do with Secure Boot. Do you have it on at least one of your computers? So we'll talk about that in a little while. But on the docket for today, we got that straw poll. We have a news flight night. I got a topic I want to kick off the discussion with after the straw poll. Then get into some news. Then I got a community feedback I'd like to do after some housekeeping. But first, what have we been doing in Linux and tech? Adam, you said something I thought was really intriguing, that you have some notes from a new Linux user and how that experience is going. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
To hear. Yeah. So how is that going? Is the mythical new Linux user really a thing?
In this case, yeah. It's actually
hot dog.
Brand new user to Linux. Yeah. Completely new. And in fact, one that I never thought would be. Yeah.
So do tell. I'm very interested in knowing how this has gone. I mean, I guess what precipitated I am going to leave whatever it is I'm using, which is what? Windows, Mac?
Windows, yeah.
Windows, okay. So is it Windows 10, Windows 11? What was it that
She was on Windows 10.
Okay.
So you can imagine the scenario is Windows 10 because it's going end of life, right? In October.
Mm-hmm.
Her machine is technically compatible with Windows 11, though the firmware TPM is disabled by default, so it thinks it's not.
Right. There's
and
a workaround.
Yeah. So was looking at what Windows 11 was in general, and was also increasingly becoming frustrated with just Windows 10 in general, like just Windows, right? Like the stupid things that Windows does and various things, and kind of realizing over time that you don't notice the paper cuts because they're paper cuts, right? They add up over time. And when she was looking at Windows 11, it's like no. She's like all the ads, the AI stuff she doesn't care about, like just everything, the UI, just all the stuff in Windows 11. Numerous reasons why she's like Windows 11 is just not an option. And she can't stay on 10. I mean, you could pay the $30 or whatever, but that's just kicking the can down the road, not really solving the problem. And so I'd asked her, and for disclosure, this is my wife, Vanessa. That is the new user.
So there's no strong arming here then, right?
Nope. Trust me. So I will tell you this scenario. I was sitting here in my chair. I turned around and I was like, look, like, Windows 10 it's gonna go away eventually this year. Like, we can move you to Windows 11 or I guess Linux, but like, and I was fully ready with this like roster of like copium reasons of why like she should just stick with Windows 11. I had this whole list in my head ready, and I just threw Linux like as a just stupid off the cuff thing, right? And she was like, "No, I want to move to Linux." And I was just completely silent because I had nothing prepared for like repair. I had no distro rec. I had nothing. I had not even thought about it at all. And
It
it was just
didn't even
like,
cross your mind.
dude, I was literally stunned, like speechless. I was like, all right, like, you serious? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I got to do some thinking. And so
Well,
I did some thinking, did some chatting with Vince about it as well. And,
yeah.
we came to the conclusion that an image-based, immutable type OS is probably the best, right?
Okay.
Now, she does her art stuff on her MacBook Pro, and mainly was just using Windows for gaming, right?
Okay.
Because her art stuff was on her Mac. And so we're like, okay, I know Linux gaming's a lot better. The kind of game she plays isn't particularly multiplayer heavy, so should be fine. So I actually ended up getting her Bazzite,
Cool.
the gaming immutable, right?
Yep.
And that would be the Plasma version, Bazzite on Plasma desktop.
Right.
And she has bestowed upon me an entire Google Doc that I'd like to go over on her experience, if I may.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Leo in chat, he did say that's cheating. She's got Linux tech support on speed dial.
So I will tell you now that I have only intervened in one instance. Everything else she's done on her own without any input from me.
Okay.
Only one time have I intervened.
Okay. Well,
Now I've given her recommendations, but only one time did I have to fix something.
now, does she happen to do any Linux nerdy podcast at all? Like, is she, or she totally does not?
She could not give a rat's ass about this kind of stuff. Like,
Okay.
it's really like,
Okay.
yeah. So, I will read her paragraphs one at a time, and we can discuss if needed.
Okay. Perfect.
So it says, running Bazzite is a great combination of Windows with some Mac features. The Spotlight, she calls it Spotlight because that's what it is on Mac, but it's actually Krunner, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if I say Spotlight, it's Krunner.
Okay. Got it. Spotlight Krunner.
Yeah. She says the Spotlight feature is great because I already use that a lot on my Mac for everything. Also, for switching to a new OS, I don't have to search through files and folders to find where things are and probably ultimately look up where something is. She said it creates an ease of use that keeps me immersed in using the OS and not hyper aware of how hard it is to figure out where things are in the new OS. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that's interesting. It's not a feature that I use real heavily. I mean, I guess just usually to invoke specific things like real quick, but it's not something I don't lean out. Like if it went away, I probably like the Krunner or Spotlight. If Spotlight went away and on Plasma, I don't know that I would be a little bit like, oh, that's sad, but I don't know that I lean on it as heavily as your wife does. So that's interesting.
It is the primary way she interacts with it. Actually.
Right, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, like she launches apps. She does. She speaks. This Krunner is mentioned many times in this document, actually. So the next thing is utilizing the Spotlight feature. I was able to get back to the Flatpak store, even though I forgot what it was called. Otherwise, I would have just used Spotlight to go directly to the store. She's referring to Discover, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I installed Telegram on my own because it was that easy, which led me to install other apps I normally used, like Discord and Slack, which work with no issues. While Telegram has this weird flickery shadow thing, but no functional issues, and I don't really care about the flicker. It's some weird thing with Plasma's like shadow thing that they do, right?
Okay.
I don't know. It's only Telegram too. It's kind of weird. But it doesn't bother her, so whatever. And she says, I've been using Chrome flawlessly. There aren't any issues and no difference from using it on Mac or Windows, as there shouldn't be because it's just a browser. So she installed Chrome, and it's the Chrome via Flatpak. And pretty much all of her apps are going to be through Flatpaks, right? Or whatever Bazzite has pre-installed. Yeah, she was able to like log in, just use it just like she normally would. And this is the key thing to keep in mind during the whole thing was a lot of it is like very anticlimactic because it just did exactly what she wanted and nothing more. It didn't get in her way, but it didn't like come in with, streamers and whistles. It just did exactly what she wanted it to do. And like, so that's like the underlying part of all of this is just like, this whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So next she says, the prime reason I even still have a Windows install is to play games. I don't play multiplayer games or games that have kernel level anti-cheat. One of them she didn't realize it. But it actually works under Linux, so no big deal. Kernel level anti-cheat, so those aren't roadblocks. Mac can sort of play some games, but I'd rather it be mostly my work machine. So her MacBook is just basically just for her art stuff, right?
Okay.
Says Bazzite is great for this because I was able to install both Steam and Itch and play those games. Steam came pre-installed, but Steam and Itch and play those games. I can play games on other consoles and the Steam Deck, but since I play a lot of indie titles, they may not actually be on PlayStation or Xbox, and some titles, indie or otherwise, aren't really suitable for the Steam Deck. And then she has in parentheses, anecdote, an indie game I was playing on the Steam Deck was fine, except I played it for too long and the Steam Deck was overheating, which led to an unplayable amount of FPS, around 7 FPS. She said I list any incidents later that after testing, and if there are any, and the game she was playing already had no issues. So she then has a list of games that worked and didn't work. But we can pause there for context here. So far, easy peasy. Go ahead.
So I was gonna just say I hate when people say this too, so I'm gonna say it, and so you can go ahead and ban me for this. But I was today years old when I found out that Itch has a client, a Flatpak. I had
It is
no
a
idea.
Flatpak, yeah.
Yes, I had
And it
no
bundles
idea.
wine in and everything, so you can immediately play all the Windows only games.
Wow.
It's a
Okay.
really good Flatpak, yeah.
I mean, I searched Itch. I'm like, is that a Flatpak? I mean, I know Itch games because I like to fund independent. Like I haven't done a lot lately. But there's been a few that I like to tip the developers. You know, like whatever. If it's a game that I like and I enjoy, I like to pay some money for that. You know, not a lot, $5-10, but I mean it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, I think. And but now that there's an application, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that was a thing. So
Yeah.
that's
And you just found it in the Flatpak in Discover, right?
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I want to say,
Mhm.
so the experience of installing applications with Flatpak and Bazzite, I
Mhm.
personally think is fabulous. It really is a fantastic experience. Now, I think I've told you, but I run Bazzite on I have a I always want to say Ready One player, but that's the movie, a 1X player, and
Okay, yeah.
the mini, the smaller one,
Mhm.
and that's what I take with me, like on a plane or whatever when I have to travel, and I really like it. So Bazzite to me, Bazzite's is perfect. Like I would say,
Yeah.
it's not. It doesn't allow me to tinker as much as I like to, so it wouldn't fit my personal like primary machine. But I think for a general purpose or gaming distribution, I think it's pretty much tip top. Steve's very own says Bazzite too much bloat. I think he might have had
That's
a
'cause
stroke.
Steve thinks games are bloat.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, it's
Steve also
okay.
he also might have had a stroke. You know, he is getting up there. So
Why not both?
my thoughts and prayers are with you, Steve.
So she then lists some games that did in her experience with these various games that she played, right? It's not important if you know the game. It is what it is.
Mm.
So game Codemancer, the game I got and never played. These are all itch games right now. So
Okay.
on her itch games, Codemancer, a game I got and never played. It's on Windows and Mac. I played it without any issues. So
Sweet.
just using the wine built into the Flatpak, no issues. Another one called Pretty Coo. I think it's like a pigeon thing. Previously played game on Windows only. Slight hiccup because it needed Microsoft Visual C++ installed, but it gave a prompt to install it. She just clicked the OK and it went on. So it installed the dependency just as normal. And
Okay.
then it played with no issues. First game that didn't work was Lost Art of Innkeeping. It said loading for several minutes, then some overlapping text I couldn't read. Appears to work fine on Windows. So that's the only of the itch games that didn't work.
Oh, the first strike.
First strike, but not much of a strike. I don't know. Didn't seem to bother her. Another one called Mon Cuties. I think it's like a monster game. Only works on it works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. No issues. Love Spell, Windows, Mac, Linux, no issues. Gatalia, sorry, it's a weird name. Windows only, but no issues and played as normal. Uh, Backbone, again, Windows only, played with no issues, right?
Hmm.
So those are all the itch games that she tried, and those all worked just fine, like except for that one.
See, now the nerd in me wants to like dig in and find out why and actually try and break it down. That I used to.
Oh, I know.
I
I
I
did
have
too. Yeah.
I've had so much fun over my years of using Linux to like figure out how to get a game to work, especially in my early days of Linux, and then
Right.
finally getting that success, and then reinstalling and not being able to reproduce it. Oh, those are great times.
Right. Yeah. So then she tried some Steam games.
Okay.
Nah. So Cloudy Valley, so that the fans kicked up quite a bit. For context, hardware, right?
Hmm.
Her desktop is not what she's using. She is using a laptop that I have. It's a Asus ROG Strix 15 Advantage Edition, I think they call it.
Sounds expensive.
It was actually on sale. I got it like $600 off. It was pretty awesome. It was like barely
really
over
awesome.
$1,000.
Wow.
And that was new, by the way. So it has a Ryzen 9 5980HX, so 8 core 16 thread, 32 gig of 6000 RAM. I think 6000. Yeah. 32 gig of 6000 RAM, a integrated Radeon whatever the crap GPU, and then a dedicated Radeon 6800M with 12 gig of VRAM and a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD.
Wow.
So it's a gaming laptop, right?
It sounds beefy.
It's pretty good. Uh, it struggles on like higher end stuff now, but it's more than capable for the stuff she plays, certainly.
Okay.
She has that connected to a 32-inch 4K Samsung display.
Okay.
So it's 4K. That's important. Wireless Logitech keyboard and mouse. Sorry to trigger you with Logitech.
Actually, I like my Logitech mouse, so
Yeah, Logitech
Doesn't-
keyboard and
doesn't
mouse. She does use an Xbox controller, Xbox Series controller, wired. And she has like a Cloud Alpha headset, which is like just a 3.5, TRRS or whatever connector.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the hardware she's using. So, for all context, right?
Okay.
So when she's played this game, the fans on the laptop kicked up. The stuff she was playing on itch obviously wasn't too intense, so it
Right.
didn't really, the laptop wasn't loud. Now suddenly the laptop got loud. She had it next to her in like a laptop stand. Since she removed her desktop, we've since moved that laptop underneath her desk, and so the sound's not right in her ear. So that helps. So for Steam games, Cloudy Valley fans kicked up. So there's a bit of jutteriness when playing, but it could just be the style of game. So they haven't played it in a while, and then no major problems, perfectly playable. Could be shader compilation, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
That's still not a completely solved thing even on Windows. So Fantasy Life I, and then there's like a whole subtitle, I don't remember it. But Fantasy Life I, that's a very new game, very big popular game right now. So have been playing the entire time on Bazzite. So she started that game on Bazzite and finished playing the game on Bazzite.
Okay.
So the whole game was on Bazzite. That actually did have easy anti-cheat, and
Really?
it worked perfectly on Linux. Yep. That is a supported Linux easy anti-cheat game. Now that's the
Really?
thing about anti-cheat is they do work on Linux, but the developer has to enable it. It's not that they're a
Interesting.
complete no; they just have to be enabled. And this was. Great performance, no problems whatsoever. Like, keep in mind, all she's doing is clicking install and play. Like that's it. It just like she would on Windows.
She's not doing any of the fun things that we would normally do in Linux,
No.
or that we have historically done in Linux.
That we still continue to do on Linux. Yes. Soshingo, another game, no issues. Monster Care Simulator, no issues. Forgotlings, no, it was a demo, no issues. Cyberpunk, great, no issues. Witcher 3, no issues. Locomoto, no save data uploaded to the cloud, but there's more on that later.
Okay.
but it ran fine. The Grandia HD remaster, which is a PS1 and Sega Saturn game,
Mm-hmm.
that did not work. That is a known thing, and it has never worked on Linux, and probably never will work on Linux because the developer did a really terrible job on the PC port. So the console version is great, but the PC port sucks, and it just doesn't work on our Linux. Her description was launched a title, but with dashboard being crash upon pressing the start button, both windowed and full screen settings. That's really it. And then Baldur's Gate 3, she had to use upscaling because of the GPU performance, but otherwise worked perfectly fine. And then the Steam, just last it, Steam Next Fest is like a thing going on this week with like a bunch of new demos and new games. She's just been playing them all. Only one of them gave her any trouble, and that's because it was a Unity game, and Unity games are really easy to make crap. So, thoughts?
Yes. So the not uploading thing, that sounds like a Steam issue, not so much a compatibility issue. Is it something?
Correct.
Is it okay? So do you know?
Yeah, she describes that later, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So I find it interesting. Now, the fans kicking up for which game was it? Was it Witcher?
It was Cloudy Valley.
Cloudy Valley.
Basically,
okay.
the fans kicked up for most of the big games. This was the first one that she noticed, like, whoa, the fans, right? But again, it's a CPU. It's a laptop with a dedicated GPU and everything, so fans gonna fan.
Right. Now, was the experience in Windows the same with the fans kicking up, or was it not kicking up in Windows?
Yeah, I mean, I've owned that laptop for a bit. Yeah, it's the same way.
Okay.
It's a gaming laptop. It's gonna be loud. That's
Okay.
pretty much it. She just wasn't used to that because her desktop was quieter, but
Gotcha.
not by a lot. But yeah. So next thing she noticed, and I want to point out some of these details might seem just inconsequential to us because we're just used to it. But these are like these small things mean a lot to her because these small things were headaches in Windows, right? So in this case, it is alt tabbing. Alt tabbing is a big deal to her in Linux. To us, it's just whatever. It's alt tabbing, right? But here, she says, I can finally alt tab while in a game without my game crashing. Whether it's to check Telegram messages, Discord, do a random web search, or whatever, I adapted to never alt tab while using Windows because it would just crash my games. Maybe not at first, but always at some point while I was still playing.
Huh. Just as an aside, on alt tabbing, my oldest, who's become quite the operating system nerd, to include now Mac OS as well, he installed Linux Mint, and he was on his gaming machine because the NVIDIA, and he wanted to like try that out. It's been going better for him, and I showed him, well, you can just switch it by doing alt tab. And he goes, alt tab, and he did it. And he goes, is this a new feature? I'm like, yeah, I think in 1995.
Yeah, Windows 95, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So yeah. So then next she says, fun notes. So I ended up wanting to keep the laptop instead of getting a new video card for my existing computer, mostly just to save money. After unplugging my desktop and setting up the laptop in its place, I realized how Steam saves work and that I needed to get the local data from my desktop I had already removed. So she'd already unplugged her desktop and everything, right?
Okay.
So apparently, Steam saves only upload your data to the cloud if the game is actively installed. So the ones that she had uninstalled but would have gone back to at some point didn't have their data saved to the cloud.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, we had not wiped the computer yet, so I set it back up in the kitchen, on the kitchen table, to make the upload to saves to the cloud, as well as grab the data locally just in case things decided to screw up on her.
Now, is it easy
now-
just to migrate the data? Like, could you manually migrate the data over to the other machine without any problems?
You can.
Okay.
You just throw it in like the compat data folders on Steam.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't sure if that was a thing.
Yeah, and that's why we got the data off the box and put it on the NAS just in case
Okay.
Steam's cloud save screwed things up, right? Because that has happened. Welcome, Vince. So I want to point out the side note here. I came in from somewhere, and I was in the restroom when she set it all up, and I walked in, into the kitchen area, and all I saw was like her computer set up on the table with the monitor and keyboard, mouse, and everything. And I'm like, Nessa, you switched to Linux, and suddenly we got computers everywhere in the house. Is this what I'm gonna expect? So it was kind of fun to see. Yeah, she was doing it to transfer her stuff, but I wanted to give her grief. Like, you try Linux, and suddenly computers are everywhere.
See, that could be your Christmas card for this year.
Linux.
She had to
not
live with a
even
Linux
one.
node for how long?
Yeah, it would have been like a couple days at this point, right? It's like, man, that's the.
No, I mean, she's lived with a Linux node for how long at this point?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. But I try not to get in the way with all my stuff. So she didn't care. She's just like, no, I'm taking this whole kitchen table. And so she said, a minor annoyance in reality, but so much worse because I wanted to be done with Windows. It's strange to think that I'm using Linux sometimes, and there are things that I'll eventually ask about, but overall, it's just nice to be able to make a smooth transition. I never thought I'd be on Linux again after trying Ubuntu so many years ago, just because Adam wanted me to try it out. I had no desire to switch then, and I never thought it would be such an easy and pleasant switch. Then she highlights and bolds and underlines this next paragraph. The Ublu folks, being the folks who make Bazzite, the Ublu folks really put out some quality work, and it shows. Everyone is going on about wanting SteamOS release for desktop, but they're sleeping on the real hero they want, and it's Bazzite.
I totally agree. I can't fault her at all.
Absolutely. So there's still more. I told you it's a whole doc,
okay.
man.
Okay,
it's
keep
awesome. So at this point, so she's been adding on to this doc over time, right?
Okay.
So at this point, it says, it's been 2 weeks since I started using Bazzite, and this is the first time I'm having to restart it because of updates. And not a negative thing, just an observation. Updates went well. I didn't really have to do anything. They mostly installed in the background. Nice, which is nice. One of the updates failed because it needed a confirmation to update something, which is totally fine. After confirming the update, it installed, and then with a restart, and I didn't have to do anything else. Nothing broke, and it didn't take a lot of time. Boot up was quick. So that was like updates is just easy for her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. Like there was one thing that had like a confirmation message, but that was it. And like, I'm sure that's probably the only time she had to do that. And now it just updates in the background when she reboots, shuts down, whatever. She just boots into the next one. Doesn't even think about it. It's like having the auto updates that Windows wants you to have without the intrusiveness of the updates in Windows, right?
Right, because it does it all in the background, and so nothing because it doesn't leave your system in a lurch like half installed. Did you ever have this happen to you on Windows?
Exactly.
Where like,
oh yeah,
yeah, so many times, like even though we have rules set for when updates are supposed to happen in at work, and on our our enterprise fleet, they still like they happen and leave a system like half broken. So in the morning somebody has to reboot it, and it takes like an hour and a half for it to do the whole process of whatever it's doing. And it's been a productivity kick in the teeth numerous times. So yeah, to have it all happen in the background, Bazzite do all in the background. I would love to see Bazzite for work groups or something like that. I don't know, like Windows for work groups. I would love to see something like that.
They have other distros that might be better suited for that, but yeah.
Well, I know, but I really like Bazzite.
I guess Aurora is pretty close to Bazzite, just minus the game stuff.
I have to check it out.
So she said, let's see, that was the previous one. Okay, she said, there is this weird thing happening in the last 2 days where it wants me to connect to the Wi-Fi network by entering the password just randomly. Then that's weird since nothing changed and it's connected with the network cable anyway. For whatever reason, Network Manager was apparently configured. When I looked into it earlier today, Network Manager was configured to not auto connect with the Ethernet. I'm gonna have to. I don't know if that's something that the Ublu guys did. I'll have to maybe put in a PR or something to fix that. But so it said so it also would disconnect from the internet when the computer goes to sleep. And again, nothing really changed, so she's not sure why. So each time she wakes it up, I have to manually connect it to the internet again. Again, it was the Ethernet auto connect is not enabled, so whenever it would sleep, whenever she wake it up, it didn't reconnect to the Ethernet for whatever reason. So now it
Interesting.
would. I just changed a flag in MCLI to have it work, but I'm wondering why that was configured that way.
Is that something that you can configure in the graphical as well? I haven't checked.
It is, but like she was busy playing a game, so I just SSH'd in and did it in the background.
Oh, you're so sneaky.
Yeah, it's a much honestly that's awesome to me because like I don't have to interrupt her with like an RDP session or something to try to fix something. If it has a terminal thing, which 9 times out of 10 they do, I can just SSH in while she's playing her game or doing something and like fix something if I need to, right? So I hadn't fixed that until this morning sometime, but that's not really her fault. That's some weirdness that got configured.
That should be at the user level, that setting, I would think. Well, actually, I could be wrong.
It is. It can be set in the thing, but again, she was busy playing a game. She didn't, it's kind of one of those like, do you want to fix it now? I'm busy, kind of things, right?
Right.
So she says she's been playing a lot of demos from the Steam Fest during this past week, and there was only one game I think that had a problem, and the problem was really that the way that they made the game in Unity, because I had many separate issues in the same game demo. However, Adam was able to teach me how. This is the one time I stepped in. And Adam was able to teach me how to get it to work using different Steam compatibility tools. And so if I run into the problem again, I know what to try. So I showed her how to install Proton Up from the Flatpak and install the other versions of Steam like Proton GE or the CachyOS Proton. Those other versions that might be more compatible, so that if she runs into a problem with the default, I showed her how she can change to these other versions to try and fix if there are problems.
Does that actually show up in the Steam properties?
In the properties list? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's really neat.
So there's a tool called Proton Up QT. There's a GTK version called Proton Plus, and what they allow you to do is they will automatically go out and download those new community versions of Proton, and then when you restart Steam, they will be in the list of compatibility options.
Huh. Cool. I'm going to put that in the show notes.
The more you know. Does anybody have anything, any questions, any statements so far?
No, I think that's really awesome so far. I think
we're almost done.
Yeah.
But yeah. She said, it's silly, but I love the fact that the cursor gets bigger when you keep jiggling the mouse.
That's not
I
silly.
find myself doing it to amuse myself in transitions of figuring out what I want to do next or just thinking. So in Plasma, if you wiggle, it gets bigger, right? But if you keep wiggling it, it just gets massive.
It gets
so she just does that
comically
to entertain
big.
herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, comically large. Yeah. And so she enjoys that. Like I see her doing that all the time. Actually, I'll look over to see this giant cursor in the middle of the screen. So that's just a small thing that she enjoys about it. So also, since I'm using a laptop with power settings enabled, I was having this annoyance that if I left my game paused for 5 minutes, it would go to sleep again, like while she's playing the game. So just an annoyance because I'd have to wake up my monitor and unlock the lock screen and such. However, I have Steam on a separate desktop than all of my other applications, and it says Adam introduced me, but she had asked, how can I do this? Right. So I just helped her answering a question. Adam introduced me to activities in Plasma, where I could specify that on my Steam desktop, I could turn off all the sleep settings because I didn't have to turn them off wholesale. At first, it didn't seem like it was working properly, but it has been great ever since. After I'm finished playing games, I just switch back to the all-purpose desktop, and if I leave for any appreciable amount of time, it will go to power saving and turn off just like normal. So she has a separate activity for gaming and an activity for normal. And so she just switches the KDE activity over, and it does all the power management stuff that she wants to, keep it from going to sleep, plays her games, and then switches back, and it just goes back to normal.
Well, that's really neat.
And I never hear anyone talk about activities. There you go.
So I used to be a heavy activities user, and then I got more screens and I stopped using it. That's really why.
Oh, right. So in this case, it's more about having different settings
Right. That makes
rather
sense.
than like workspaces, right?
So you have like, so in theory, you could have like, like regular computery things, and you have gaming mode, and then you can have like
Right. So like
no
she might,
distraction
keep
writing
like
mode.
a balanced power mode and like normal mode, but you want the performance mode over in the gaming activity and turn off sleep and all that kind of stuff, right? And so
Was that
that's
something she discovered herself?
she had described the issue she was having, and that was a solution I came up with for her.
Okay.
I said there are other ways where she could just manually turn off the, hit the inhibit thing and the power settings and all that, which she knew about, but she wanted something that was a little more automatic, right?
Makes sense.
And so that was kind of the way I could come up with that, because game mode was also an option. Like using game mode run would inhibit the stuff. However, that would require her to put game mode run in front of every game in launch options, and that would just be asinine. So this is way better of a solution. And it also helps her like divide, this is a gaming environment with a different wallpaper and different everything, and this is the normal environment, right? So there's that context switching as well. So it wasn't that she couldn't make that happen herself, but she wanted a more automatic way, and so she reached out to me for that.
So let me ask this: if you're on Windows or Mac, do they have similar type activities? I don't know. I've not explored
No.
that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, an entirely different user profile, fast user switching. That's the closest thing you're gonna get.
Okay.
She said, I am on a 4K monitor, and so she wanted the term for it. I told her the term was fractional scaling. So the fractional scaling is at 150%, and it works so well that she forgot that it was set that way. Because I'd asked her, I was like, what percentage do you have your monitor at? She's like, I don't know. Because it was just there, and I'm like, yeah, that's what's up. Like, for all of us, we know the horror of the last, like, what, 10 years of just anything high DPI on Linux, right? And then she comes in and it's like, I don't know, I don't see what the problem was. What are you guys talking about? Because it just worked for her.
Yeah, that's really, that's pretty huge. The fact that she had
that's bigger than
Yeah.
and like any new user is just going to be like, well, of course it does 150%. Why wouldn't it? And we're like, let me tell you why wouldn't it?
Right.
Let me tell you the story. Yeah.
Come here, youngin. Let me tell you about Linux back in my day.
Yeah, exactly. Gather round. Yeah.
Pull up a
It was the
chair.
dark age of 2015. Yeah. So it says she uses Logitech wireless peripherals, a mouse and keyboard. And so she's using Solar as a flat pack that shows her the battery percentages and other configurations for her devices. She said, which was nice when she thought her keyboard was low battery, but it turned out to be her mouse. Because she just got a low battery indicator, but didn't realize which device it was. So having that allowed her to see, oh, it's actually my mouse. So she's able to basically replace the Logitech options software in Windows with Solar and Linux, and no problems at all. And then the very last line on the document says, conclusion, I don't miss Windows at all. And at all is all caps.
At all.
At all. That's what it's like for an actual new non-technical person to use Linux now, to use Bazzite.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, she took Linux, ran the hardest things to run on it, video games, because they're the hardest thing to run I've ever tried to run in my entire life on any operating system. And it worked well enough to her to say, I don't want to run Windows anymore. I think that's a bigger accomplishment than we all think, in a way.
It's huge.
It's massive. I mean, trying to get a video game to work is sometimes the biggest nightmares I've ever had. I mean, I got Autodesk Inventor to work easier than a video game.
And yeah, like this is a very non-technical person, despite the fact she lives with me. Like, anytime I say things that don't make sense to her, like jargon, she laughs at how silly the words sound. Like
Yeah.
when I say things. So like usually if I'm explaining something that sounds like, techno babble, she just responds with linting YAML because I told her that was a thing. Like I was linting a YAML file at work, and she's just like, "What is linting YAML? Those aren't words. Like you just made that up." But like, no, they actually are words, and so like
Honest.
that's the level. Like we're talking not a technical person at all. She's an artist. She's a creative. She's that is not how her brain does not like work like ours at all, and yet she is able to sit down at an immutable distro. For all of you who go out there saying immutables can't be used, they're I can't do this, I can't do that, a a normal person is using an immutable distro with no issues at all. My artist wife can use an immutable distro to play games, chat with people, browse the web, and all of this on her own, discovering these things on her own. It is possible. It is good. She doesn't have to worry about things just breaking on her on an update. The updates are transactional. It's a robust system. She has had no issues whatsoever. It's been fast. Like, yeah, it's that good. Not just desktop Linux, but these Universal Blue immutable distros are that good.
Yeah, honestly, if not for just a few little things, I could potentially see myself on Bazzite instead of OpenSUSE Tumbleweed.
And I
It's-
guarantee you those few little things are actually possible on there.
yes, they are possible. It's just the amount of work it would take to get to that, the last 2%, you could say, is just more. It's more work than it's worth to make the move. So
You let me know what those things are, and I'll get you on Bazzite.
I'm perfectly happy with my chameleon.
I mean, the same
So-
thing would apply to like what the Aeon or whatever the OpenSUSE version is, right?
Well, I don't
If
like
you're used to the more OpenSUSE tooling, right?
I don't like GNOME, and so
They have a Plasma version, don't
they do, and it's not a great experience for me. It wasn't.
they? All right.
So yes, you are absolutely correct. I can do it. So I guess what would be better really is if I were to build my own and then deploy it would be a better way of doing it, I think. So because I run most of my applications are Flatpak at this point. Not all, but most.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could very well go that route, but there's some things like additional drivers that I like to run, and then I like to experiment with hardware too. So there's a tinkering aspect that, I can turn off the mutability and do the tinkering, but then the good thing is it probably would be best if I reverted all that tinkering out, like at a next update. But again, it's like how much more work is it to get to that
Just do it
point?
in a container.
Yes, I could do. Well, there's like hardware tinkering that I like to do, and you're right. I probably could do it in a container. But
Like you're talking about like kernel modules and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can just build your own image.
right, I'm saying so. Like there's a bit of a hump that I have to get over, but based on my understanding at this point, I could literally just take my current setup that I have of OpenSUSE and turn that into an immutable image, basically.
Right.
And then I make all the updates transactional like that. I will say though, the way Tumbleweed does the snapshotting, it's just as easy to just roll back to an older snapshot when there's problems, and so it's not.
Right. I guess the difference there are some nitpicky differences there, and that's
Right.
not just about rollbacks, right? But yeah, I get you.
So I guess if something doesn't work, it's very easy for me to just roll back or switch kernels because I keep like I'll keep like a history of 5 kernels. So if something breaks, then I can switch back to an older kernel at a reboot, and
Right.
then I'm good to go. And so
But
It's not-
there's more to it than just that.
you're right.
Right. Yeah.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
But like
So
for my
Mhm.
handheld, I'm using Bazzite because for
Oh,
that
yeah.
use case, it's perfect. And it's got tail scale baked into it. So there's no other faffing about I have to do. And if I want to
Right.
run like a tumbleweed distro box, I can do that on there just as well. I don't do anything productive with it at all. Like at the very most, I've used it to be a virtual screen. Like
Mhm.
so I could like when I'm a digital nomad, I just use it as a virtual screen. So that's like the most work I actually do with it, if that makes any sense. But
Right.
I truly do not use it for anything but play, and it's absolutely perfect. And I think what I think is compelling is if I could get to the point where I took the time to learn how to build these different images,
Mm-hmm.
it would be very, I don't know how sustainable it would be, I guess the question. But there are some like kiosk machines at work that I could probably switch over to a Linux machine, because all they're used for is they're just training computers.
Right.
So
That would be way better to deploy.
right, especially as an immutable.
Mm-hmm.
Now the only issue I've had is I've had some hit and miss as far as like getting the Linux machines on a domain successfully, then being able to do, use the Windows ID, like the Windows login from the domain controller
Right.
on Linux. That doesn't seem to work right for me. But that's really the only, if I could get that figured out, I could probably very easily just move a bunch of machines over to being like single purpose machines over to being
Mhm.
Linux instead of Windows. But
Right.
that's going to take some work, and based on everything else that the powers that be would prefer I spend my time on, that would not be one of them. So
Right. So this so for Nessa, like this is perfect. This is like if you're just like an everyday user type person. I mean, we always talk about the mythical new Linux user, right? This
Mhm.
is an actual new Linux user.
Yep.
And it was completely smooth. So much of it was just like she's like, "Oh, I'll just like search this for Discord. Oh, there's Discord, install. I'll search this for Slack. Oh, there it is, install." And just log in and just use it. Don't think twice. Like it, just like any other app store she would think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like it's been amazing. Like, I think Leo mentioned about it's cheating because she has me for tech support. She didn't need me for tech support. That's the reality. Like she actually has had less paper cut issues on Bazzite than in the same amount of time that she would in Windows. Like
That's huge.
so many problems in Windows. Like just like the alt tabbing thing. It's like if I send her a telegram, it's like, do I know it's gonna crash the game or not? Like literally. Like if she alt tabs to answer my message, is it gonna crash her game and she's gonna get pissed? So she just picks up. She would avoid alt tabbing and simply pick up her phone to answer the message, even though she could faster type it out. But she avoided alt tabbing on Windows because it would break things.
That's wild.
She had another issue with like a Microsoft account. It's a long story, but her Microsoft account was like bound to like a Microsoft family thing.
Mm-hmm.
And every night at 10, it would completely take over the screen and say, "You're going to have to ask your parent for permission to keep playing." even though she's the organizer of the family.
Nice.
It made her ask me for like she had to put in my like Microsoft credential thing to keep using her computer. And nothing would make this go away. And then their games and everything would completely crash after that. Because it's the same as alt tabbing at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this would happen. And so she'd be frustrated at that. Most of the time when that would happen, she's like, "Screw it, I'm going to bed. Whatever. I'm just mad." Right? And
The
here's
computer
the
one.
thing about going to Windows 11 is the MSA is a requirement. So she couldn't just switch to a local account to avoid it. If she went to 11, the MSA, the Microsoft account is a requirement. So
Is that
it would
true
just
for
continue.
Pro? Is that true for Windows Pro as
Yeah.
well? Is it?
Yep. The only one that isn't is Enterprise. Yeah. I did end up later figuring out how to fix it, but that was after she was like well into her Bazzite journey and she was already like she had already done, dumped gas and threw the match. Like she was done.
Yeah.
And so, like, all of these little things, driver updates, all these other issues that she had, just tons of issues over time. Everything was slow, and it just felt like her disk kept just like she wasn't really downloading or doing much, but like it just always seemed to take up more and more space on like her SSD and stuff because she had like I want to say a 512 gig SSD or something, maybe 1 terabyte, and like another just slower drive for storage and stuff. Like just all these issues, and she was just tired. She was done, like so done that like she said she wanted to move to Linux, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second now, like put the gun down. Let's just step away and think about this for a second, right?
Yeah.
But it has been an amazing 2 weeks for her. Like, and I've just gotten to sit here and like smugly grin at how awesome this is. Like, just like, yeah, yeah. And she's like, well, it works so well. I'm like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. Like, it's awesome. And so like I'm super happy and I'm excited to see what else she ends up doing, like, because originally it was just for gaming. And I thought she was going to play games on the computer, shut it down, and go use her Mac, right? But no, like, she just used her Mac for basically art and work stuff. And then she does everything else on Bazzite. Like, she's chatting and, like, playing games and browsing the web and doing all this stuff on Bazzite. I'm like, whoa.
If I may, I think it's if I could take a moment to think about this a little bit and just be if to be a little circumspect about how we've gotten to this point, how someone like Nessa could just pick up a distro and just use it to get all the stuff done. Because you touched on a point earlier. It's like, well, we knew some of the little paper cuts, as you'd call it, that had come along the way on so many things. There was the high DPI stuff, even just getting drivers installed, network stuff. And we've heard, talk of the saying, standing on the shoulders of giants, and how so many little pieces have now come together to get to this point, let alone, the Bazzite guys. Definitely all credit to them, and the whole extended family of the Immutables, right? To be able to produce a distro that can work for somebody like Nessa and get all that stuff done. There's also been so many little, things that have come together along the way. The plasma people for making that the environment usable, and GNOME if you prefer that. I just think that and I haven't even been in Linux for that long, and definitely nowhere near as long as some other people here, but I've already seen in the years that I've been in it how much progress has been made, and I think that that's something that we often not think about as much when we're just sitting down and use it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, it's tons of work. I mentioned a couple, few episodes ago about how like, it's really easy for us to look at Proton and it's like, oh, Valve just like pulled Proton out of their butt and here it is, right? But it's like, no, there's all these community people who put all these disparate parts that they were building separately because they, needed them and wanted to make them happen. And it's all like, it is the community and all these developers and all these people helping, like contributors, people issues and bug reports and hardware testing and all this other stuff just over the years, all these people together, and like it comes together in a product that if you think about from like an enterprise perspective, there's no way this would work, and yet it does. There's no way this could possibly come together, and yet it does. I've seen organized teams of people not be able to put together as good of an experience and product as this, right? And yet it's all these people together. And yeah,
I mean, it took 3 decades, but let's go with that.
I mean, sure, but how long did it take for Windows to get good?
Still working.
Yeah, right. And like, oh, there's Eric. And so it's been incredible. Like, even just it's only been 2 weeks. This is our third Saturday. It was the It was like right after the, I think it was the Saloon where you had went off to vacation that week, right?
Okay.
And so like that Saturday, and then the next, and then today, and like so it's been 2 full weeks, and she's had an amazing experience. I don't know if you've heard everything, Eric. I hope you have, but yeah, it's
The mythical Linux
incredible.
user is not no longer a myth. I think that's what we've
Yeah,
learned.
she's real. I hug her every day.
That's good. I'm glad you do. It's really exciting. It's wild. And there's a who's that in the Leo says Bazzite, Bluefin, Aurora are the second coming of Linux. And I think that's actually a pretty accurate statement. I think with the work that's been done in Flatpak, and then how Discover has become a better. You can use sign language, Eric, if you can't get your microphone working. Yeah, I don't hear it.
He'll give you one gesture.
There's that one. Yeah, you can give me the one gesture.
Yeah.
That one, yeah. I like that one. The New York salute. So the with all the work that's been done on Flatpak and the packaging and the efficiencies in there, it truly does seem like this next, I don't know, distribution of Linux. It's almost like Flatpak is a distribution of Linux. Does that almost seem like I'm saying that correctly?
I mean, a lot of times what differentiates distros is their package manager, so why not?
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out for sure. Because
I mean, she's absolutely gonna stick with it. So
yeah,
because she's already burned the bridge for Windows. So
I would like to see a follow up on this, like in, I don't know, maybe middle to end of summer sometime, because it'd be interesting to see how this shakes out after, there's the honeymoon phase of something, and you're excited and new, and it works great, and then as things go on, new things bother you about it, So it'd be.
I don't think she's as susceptible to that as we are.
No, but I'm still curious if where things are.
It took her how long to finally for all of the paper cuts of Windows to finally be enough. Mm-hmm. She's been a Windows user her whole life, so
right.
So
I don't think
I was listening.
You were? Okay.
Yeah, and what made me interested and possibly excited about that is my wife has always used Mac for a long time until they went to OS 10, and then she just wasn't on board with the changes. And I know that's been a very long time, but what she did was then switch to Windows, and that was probably Windows 7 era, somewhere on there maybe. And she had contemplated going back to Mac at one point, but then she uses CorelDRAW as her main graphics platform. And it, at the time, was only running on Windows. They kind of gave up on Mac. Mac was having that, bit of a rough patch there for a while, and they felt like maybe that was the wrong bet for them. Anyway, so now we're faced with not only the impending Windows 11 upgrade, if we want to call it that, and then she has an older laptop that is not eligible for the upgrade. And then, so we're looking at new hardware, and if the only option is Windows 10, then, or Windows 11, my guess is that there's going to be some friction there. And so I'm wondering if this could be like my one golden opportunity to find a way to run her software on some distribution of Linux, and then see if it'll work. Because I mean, she basically uses that Chrome, Adobe, Acrobat. So she is one of those people that has a need for Windows in terms of running Windows only software, and isn't interested in Mac as an alternative. But if I can maybe solve some issues, she's not using Acrobat all the time, so maybe I get that installed in a some sort of a container virtual machine, something like that. And I don't think she'd be able or want to use CorelDRAW on a virtual machine. Maybe, but I don't think so.
Right.
So, but this is the closest I've ever gotten to a situation where potentially she would be interested. And, I would like to think that we've come far enough that that there is no situation left or very few situations left where, we have to continue to use Windows because there's no choice. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
It really be like that, man. It's so crazy. Like,
Yeah.
for those of us who've basically been through this whole thing, right? Like, we've seen this, from the brown days of Ubuntu, or the days of, I got Slackware
The
installed from
warthogs.
the CD, but like I can't do anything beyond that, right? Like
Yeah.
we've seen it grow into something that, I mean, I can't tell you. And this is personal because it's literally the meat bag behind me that's running it, right? But like,
Yeah.
I see all the time, like, random YouTubers, like people who don't make tech content. They just, like, one person like had like a whole like thing about like pottery or something, but they're like, I'm switching to Linux. And I'm like, what?
Do you remember how
Like-
excited you would get whenever you would just happen to see Linux running somewhere? I remember the first time
Oh
I
yeah,
was on
yeah.
a
Even if it's like a kernel panic, yeah.
Yep, I'd
Yeah.
see it on a flight from now and then because the in-flight entertainment system would
would
be
boot up.
running Linux.
Yeah,
and you'd see the Tux Penguin.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and it would
now
be
it's-
like,
it's
wow.
like
Yeah.
tons of people using it, like way
Yeah.
more people using it.
Yeah, the infotainment system in my van uses Linux because before this latest update, it would crash all the time, and I'd see the Linux penguin. Like, hey, it's running
So-
Linux.
Yeah.
So would you agree then? And this, I didn't hear the whole conversation. Maybe you've already
Mhm.
talked about. So if you
No,
have,
go ahead.
just tell me. But would you agree that so in the past, because Microsoft had such a stranglehold on software, not just, the operating system, but the fact that, the best experience or the only experience with a lot of software was on Windows, or, maybe to a lesser degree on Mac. And finally, because everything, for the most part, has become browser based, or an Electron app, or
A lot of the
something that's
cross-platform stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That is what is going to be almost like a fatal decision on their part to be such sticklers on needing newer hardware for Windows 11. The things in Windows 11 that I know for a fact Windows 10 users are not going to like. And so, you have those two things. And then the fact that they don't have the stranglehold on the ecosystem anymore. I mean, I think this is probably, and I'm not one of those silly people that are like, the year of the desktop Linux. Like, it's just,
That was
the
2003.
whole premise it's flawed. The whole premise is flawed. Like, I don't care what people use. I just feel personally like Linux on the desktop is a better, easier way to run a computer, right?
Yeah.
The idea of repositories and trusted software and easy ways to get the software, and then just in general to update, and just everything, like you said, not wanting to alt tab because it might crash your computer, like stuff like that. And of
Right.
course, those things still exist, but you also have the ability to ask someone about, like, well, is there a way to fix this? Is
That
there?
is the superpower. Yep.
Yeah. So do you
You
think?
can call Microsoft support all you want. They're not going to tell you anything useful.
Oh,
I mean,
God
even
help
the
you if you
codes you see
ever.
on the blue screen are useless, right?
And their documentation is close to terrible. You have to use
Oh,
an
yeah.
AI to have.
Oh,
I
those
have to use like
Microsoft.
Grok to use in order to, or Copilot to be able to utilize their help, because it is not
Yep.
valuable at all.
The Microsoft forums, anytime I see if that's where the address wants me to go, I'm like, nope, forget it.
No,
It's just
no.
not worth it.
That I don't need to be told to restart my machine again. I don't need to be told to run SFC scan now again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, that this really legitimately could be where somehow Linux slips into potentially double digits. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, quite possibly, or damn close to it. And like, I never would have seen like it. You were talking about it being easier to use, like just as a computer, right? Like, because things are a lot more logical, I get. Like things just make more sense. And I know
Yeah.
it's sort of like we're used to it, so it makes more sense. But I think like when you explain it to someone who doesn't know, it requires less leaps of faith, I guess, than like Windows does, right? Like the fact that she was able to, she didn't even open up Discover because she couldn't remember the name Discover. She just searched with KRunner, as she knows it as Spotlight because that's what it is on the Mac. Like she opened up, K Spotlight and ran like just to search for like Discord, and it's like, oh, get Discord. It's like, yep, that's what I'm here for, and just install it. Like that level of ease is not something you get on Windows, because if I open a Windows search and search for a thing, I'm rolling the dice as is there a file on my system that says Discord? Is it the
Yep.
app in the store that says Discord? Are you gonna Bing search for Discord? Like what's gonna go on, right? And the
Yeah,
Microsoft
that's the
Store
other.
has more stuff in it now than it did, like legit stuff, less scam stuff, like than it did before. But it's not the same experience whatsoever, because when she went and installed Discord, she didn't have to, like, she could see it was Discord and just like, yep, there it is. And she didn't have to go to the website to download an exe or anything like that. Like when you think about how pants on head it is for like every app to have its own updater and like all of those, like the maintenance of Windows, like
Yeah.
it's just like it really is kind of silly. And someone like myself who's used to it, or any one of us who are used to, like, we know those things, right? We do them reflexively. Like we don't think about what we're doing. We're just like, our brain's just like, oh, I need to install Discord. Then our hands are already typing discord.com, right? Like we know to do that on Windows, right?
Yeah.
But like if you show someone that, like, hey, this can be just as easy as your smartphone, like, why? Yeah, they're gonna be like, yeah, give me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then of course, like you said, you throw in the immutable aspect of it. So, okay, good. You now have a solid base that's very difficult to mess up.
Yep.
You have a software store that hopefully has the equivalent software they're looking for. And then I
Mhm.
also contend, like, and maybe this is just because I'm a nerd, but I love to look through software stores for software that I've not seen or heard of before.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
fun
Mhm.
to go browse around because it's there and all I have to do is click a button
Right.
and boom, you have it. And so there's no consequence to it. If you don't like it, uninstall it or don't. It doesn't really matter. But
Mhm.
yeah, the ease of use around all of that, and then just the idea, the updating of it. The one thing that I think people can get in trouble with is if they install a point release of a distribution and they only have 9 months of support, and then
Right.
an upgrade doesn't go quite right or
Mhm.
isn't really something that's supported. So I still
And
think
that's where the immutable solves it.
exactly. So I think that's where, this new future does change so many of the things that gave me pause in the past to recommend Linux to someone simply because of self-preservation, where I felt like, okay, if I do
Right.
this,
I
I'm
don't want
signing
to
up
be on
for
the
a,
hook for this. Yeah. Right. Exactly. But see,
yep.
and I had talked to Vince, and I also talked to the Gemini chatbot about it as well. And like we talked about, like, what should I give her, because I was thinking like, well, immutable is an option, and then I was thinking like, well, I could have like an Ansible setup where it like makes sure the thing is in state, so like the configs are always right and all of that. And like that would be something I would have to manage, like you said, getting on the hook for things. I had like several different ideas, and ultimately the immutable one was the best one and the easiest one, and the easiest one on me, and just all of this stuff, right? And it's incredible. Like I know we here are the tinkery type. We like to screw our stuff up. That's
Mhm.
what tinkering is just shorthand for, right?
Yep.
And like immutables don't sound like they're compatible with us, but they absolutely are.
Yeah,
They
no,
absolutely are.
yeah. And this is the truth too. I think if either, well, okay, if you're a new user to Linux or particularly, nerdy, like, okay, you distro hop at least for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And maybe you just do that on ancillary systems that aren't, like as important as a main system. But at some point, and this has happened to me in the last few years, like you kind of loathe the idea of having to go through setting things up again, even if you have dot files, even if you have, source control, like it doesn't matter. The idea of having to do any extra effort to run a computer becomes less and less appealing. And so the idea that you're just perpetually getting the updates to a system where the idea that I could literally run a system, and let's say, I'll always have an immutable or atomic or whatever we're calling it today, distro, that means that technically I could have that same thing on the laptop for a decade, right? Why not?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just keep getting updates and that's it. Like, how amazing would that be?
And it's like you're running Plasma, right? Or something. And you're just like, I'm kind of bored with this. I want to run over GNOME or something else. You literally just rebase and all your stuff's still there. Your home folder, your Flatpaks, your containers, all this stuff is still there. And you just have this nice new desktop and you're just like, yep, now I can enjoy playing with the other desktop and all my stuff's still there. I don't have to worry about the weirdness, which we've all experienced when you try to either install two desktops or swap between them.
No.
That absolutely is just, it's a mess, right?
Bad juju. No doubt.
But it's like, it is one command and a reboot in the immutables, and it's perfect. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that like that is where we're at, that Nessa has like a regular person, an artistic, just like creative kind of person who has not a technical bone in her body, who makes fun of me for linting YAML. Like she can run this. Like and I'm not saying that you guys should all do what she does or what I tell you, whatever. But anyone watching this, like, just seriously think to yourself, like, why am I not running an immutable? Like, what am I getting out of a normal distro that I can't get with an immutable plus some? Right? There will be edge cases, but we have to like be completely honest with yourself and think, can that thing I do be done in a distro box? Can that thing I do be done in a Podman or Docker container? Can it be done in
virtual machine,
a Flatpak or a virtual machine? Did you know Virt Manager is a Flatpak now?
Yep.
You have the entire QEMU Virt Manager stack in a Flatpak.
Yeah.
That's
Flatpak
wild.
is really, I mean, I know the whole snap versus Flatpak and people have a preference and all that, and that's fine. But in terms of the distro maintainers and developers, like they're pushing hard on Flatpak, and the things that they're able to achieve because I would have told you a year or two ago, well, Flatpak's great, just it will never replace any system level package.
You can't do this and that, yeah.
Exactly. It'll never have hardware level, like that low level, and no, I mean, it certainly can. It's just, they just hadn't gotten to it yet, So,
just that's the takeaway, I think, is Linux is absolutely there. And so George Castro talks about building for the 96%. And that's what he's talking about. The 96% of users who use a computer, that's what they're making the distro for. That's what their vision is. And Nessa firmly falls within that 96%. And so, like, genuinely think about the things you do day to day with a computer. And I guarantee you can do it on an immutable. Because it's so easy that my artist wife can do it. Like, it's that easy.
And he means that in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But like, it's wild to me.
Do you know
because I have been there. I've seen it. I almost, I tried my best not to make blue smoke come out of my monitor configuring X. I've been there. She didn't have to do any of that. It's awesome.
No. And, for the people that have colored their opinion of Linux based on, a bad experience, if that experience wasn't in the last year, I mean, you have to let that go.
Please
and try again.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
soapbox, we're good.
So I was looking through the Bazzite downloads. I don't see an NVIDIA option in there for desktops with NVIDIA.
Yeah, you can choose your graphics card. So I think it's bazzite.gg is the website.
Yep.
So if you go to download Bazzite, and there's a drop down, so it says what hardware are you using.
Oh, okay. I see.
Desktop at the top, and then
NVIDIA.
it asks you your primary GPU vendor. So NVIDIA. They do support the older 900 and 1000 series with the legacy driver, but if you have a newer one, that's even better. obviously AMD and Intel, world's your oyster. And then Plasma or GNOME.
And then you can choose if you want to start in gaming mode or not. That's cool. All right, actually, yeah, I'm gonna try this on a NVIDIA desktop, and I want to get back with you on that one.
I think you'll love it, Nick. If you have any questions, throw them my way.
But no, I do think
I'm a Bluefin user just because I like GNOME, and you're gonna have the same experience on Bazzite. But yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. Yeah.
You're running Bluefin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have it on one of my
talking to you
systems.
right now
Yeah.
from Bluefin. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just prefer GNOME over Bazzite, or so Bluefin over Bazzite. But
Right.
Potato.
But Bazzite has GNOME, but you're not really playing games, right? So yeah.
No, and that's just it. I'd rather just use the extra development stuff and all that that's in.
Yeah, I like that they have a
Bluefin.
DX image. It's like a developer image that has all the
Mhm.
developer stuff in it. And if you don't want
Right.
developer stuff, you can just not do the DX image. And it's super easy. There's like a ujust command that has like all these things that they've built.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
they they have a command in there where you can install DaVinci Resolve in a container. And it's literally one command, and you point it to the zip file you downloaded from DaVinci.
May I also just
would
bring
that-
up one more?
would that
Go
work
ahead.
on any distro though?
Yeah, sure, but it's easier on theirs because it's just one command.
Okay.
You don't
Because
have
it's
to
wrapped
know
in the
Podman and all that,
ujust. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to once again reiterate, because I hear this enough that I want to say it, that if it wasn't for people like this team, this fairly small team, taking an idea and running with it, we wouldn't see these types of advances. And we never exactly know which ones are going to be the ones that set off real change. And so for the whole there's too much fragmentation, why is everybody doing different things? This is exactly why. Whenever people just have an idea and they say, we're just going to see what the logical conclusion of this is. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something. This is another one of those situations where I think we're seeing real change based on the work of a small few. So just wanted to say that.
Here. Oh, very cool. Well, thank you very much, Adam, for that. I appreciate that. I definitely want to follow up on this, and also, does anybody else they want to say? I know Vince always has something he wants to say. It's not always valuable or desired, but I would like to hear what he has to say anyway.
Hold up, Nate, because I heard somewhere in there that I got equated to Gemini in the same sentence. Because yes, so initially I was like, how should I take this?
I think.
I mean, a year ago I would have taken it as insult, but Gemini is pretty good now, so I'm okay with it.
No, I think I would take it as an insult. You're way better than Gemini.
It depends on if you're hallucinating at the time or not.
That's if hallucinating's bad. See, it's always two ways you can take it.
Well, listen,
You can
bad,
be
good.
creative.
Yeah, exactly. Just
also
makes you more interesting to talk to.
I am a hallucination.
And a fig Newton of my indigestion.
Yes, exactly. Vince has never actually existed.
I've heard so many times people tell me that Australia's just not real. Okay, so I might as well be.
That's a pretty good one.
It's
Now-
But you got to admit.
it's not
To
real
Vince's
unless I get
credit, he has been along for this as well. Because I chat with him all the time, and so he has been daily updates on this kind of thing, basically with Nessa, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that is really awesome. I next time my son complains about his something with his computer, I'm gonna push him again toward Bazzite, but he doesn't like the immutable, and he's young. He shouldn't have an opinion about this. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a
what
skill
they say,
issue.
you go with what you know, right?
Yeah,
And so
that's
that's
it, yeah.
why people want to use Windows or the things that look like Windows, because that's muscle memory or visual paradigms or whatever. And I don't know. I think
on-
that might be true to some extent, but I think given the situation we just talked about, maybe, and especially younger people, maybe they see this as an opportunity to try different things. I don't know.
Well, he's been bouncing from OpenSUSE to Fedora to Debian. Now he's on Mint.
You haven't disowned him?
No, I don't care what he
Don't you have a
uses.
strict OpenSUSE
Debian, what is he,
policy?
40?
No, he actually really likes Debian, and I'm like, okay, I don't care. Hey, if
No, I
he's
also find it funny. Yeah,
if he's
go
learning
ahead.
and having fun, I don't really care what he's using. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
we also have a couple. I mean, we have 3 Macs in the house now too. He's installed Windows. He made it a point to install Windows on machines that have no business running Windows, and like Windows 11, I should say. He got a tiny 11 build, so it like strips out all the superfluous
Right.
garbage out of it, and actually it runs really well. Like tiny 11, if you want to like run Windows and have a good experience on a little bit maybe long in the tooth hardware, use tiny 11. Yeah, some things won't work, but
It will
overall,
break.
well, probably will.
Yeah, that's
It
the
does
problem.
break. It always
will
breaks.
break, yeah.
But I mean, it's like
That's
Jay
not
would
to say
understand this.
retail Windows doesn't break either, right?
Right, but it's like getting like a doing a quarter mile in those like super modified dragster cars. It's
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
it's
like
only
that.
got to do
It's-
it once.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's really fast when it does it. It's going to break and it might be a fire explosion, but it's a good time.
But
while
wasn't
it
that
lasts.
cool? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's funny you mentioned, Eric, about people using things that they're comfortable with, like things that resemble the things they're comfortable with. Despite the fact that Plasma ostensibly looks like Windows in many ways by default, her first instinct was to open something with the shortcut for Spotlight. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Just
and
hit, like, Alt
I mean,
space and just, yep, there it is. Cool. It did the thing I expected it to. Boop, 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 boop.
hooray, win!
And like that's the thing. It's like if you just kind of take everything like at the most like face value, like single sentence thing, right? Like a thesis statement of her thing. It's like, yeah, it's Linux, whatever. Like it has been like uneventful, and that in itself is eventful, right?
Well, I remember, when was it? Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago when she tried Ubuntu and we got that very candid feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a S show. You know, like
I remember.
it was a bad experience, a really bad one.
Yep.
And then comparing that to now, and she's like, it just does. It just works. It just computes. And like, that's incredible, dude. And I mean, she
It
could
is.
have easily just like played a game, shut it down, and go use her Mac. But she didn't. She's just been using it and didn't think twice about it.
So, and I think maybe that's part of what I'm seeing, or what I'm saying about the opening that Linux has against Windows now, because Windows is now becoming just the same old story, far beyond just the people who, let's say, know better simply because we've used Windows for so long. I think the idea that people just have a laptop for no reason anymore is less and less true, right? People have devices, they have tablets, phones, handheld devices for gaming. So a laptop becomes more of a productivity device, right? And if the thing that's running on it is hampering your productivity, that I think causes you to question, like, why is it like this? And then if you even dig slightly under the surface, and then you start seeing people who have a pottery channel talking about Linux,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, Linux, what's that? And they do a cursory look and, oh, it's free. I can just try it. And,
I saw some life coach guru guy who was like, like achieve nirvana with Linux or something like that. It was like,
That's the
was
secret?
crazy.
that could be the secret.
Not those exact things, but like it was just normal folks. And they're like, yeah, I tried Linux. It was
So-
great. I'll probably
so
stick with it.
Instead of yoga with a goat, it's yoga with a penguin.
Or chameleon. Or beefy miracle,
Ooh,
depending
yeah.
on what you're at.
Whoa.
Although I think yoga with a beefy miracle is a whole other website I'm thinking about. But
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a very
Definitely.
popular website, but
Mhm. For few.
yeah. Yeah. So it is really cool. And I just, the level of frustration, I guess I'm seeing, beyond my wife too, like other people I know who are Windows users, I guess that's part of it. Customers of mine who needed to get new machines Most of them just
Yeah.
resign themselves, but I think there are enough of people that are like, "Why do I need a new computer? There's really nothing
There are
wrong." You
enough
know,
people who are being like, they're overwhelmed with rent and other bills. They can't afford, like, to get a new machine is just not in the cards.
the audacity to tell someone, "Hey, you know that completely functional thing
Yeah.
that you've got all of your software just the way you want it, you know, all of your icons and whatever customizations you've deemed necessary for you to make it your own." Yeah, sorry. No, it's on a
It's
very
super
based on a
classic.
very small technicality where we can't, you
An
can't keep using
arbitrary
it.
one. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
don't get me wrong, the TPM thing, like, I understand their reasoning for the security thing. I get it. But like, that is at odds with people who are literally living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're gonna ask the family of 4 living on $60,000 to go buy your Copilot Plus PC.
It's also
Please.
a little bit unfair because let's be real, enterprise in a lot of cases are slow to change, right?
Mhm.
And yes, of course, we've known that the end of life of Windows 10 has been coming for a long time, but it doesn't matter. Do you think any hospitals or educational institutions or, the traditionally less capable institutions are going, or, areas of computing are going to suddenly
asking
like,
them-
oh, Microsoft said we need to upgrade. It's,
Every single machine needs to be different now.
yeah. And they're going to get different treatment than home users simply based on the amount they spend. And it seems unfair.
Yep.
So
That's what
And
happens.
because I
guess.
sang her praises, she gave me key lime pie.
Oh my gosh,
nice.
you are a blessed man.
Now,
Dude,
if
don't I know
she
it? She's amazing.
if she flies in some sausage from New Orleans for you,
Oh
then
man,
I don't know.
she hasn't done that yet. Put that out to the universe, though. I'm okay with that happening.
That's good vibes, man. Good vibes.
Yep. Let's manifest it.
Well, I'll take that as a cue to move on to our straw poll. So this is Act 2 of Linux Saloon. So thank you for that. I might have to get a feedback next week now. But I do want to talk about our straw poll. So do you use Secure Boot? If you haven't done the straw poll yet, I put the link in the chat a little bit ago. I don't know if it's still in there, but I can put it real quick. So do you use Secure Boot on at least one of your computers? So, Adam, does Bazzite support Secure Boot?
It does.
It doesn't on my One X player, but
You sure?
because I have to turn it off, otherwise it doesn't boot. But maybe we'll work on that
I'm
offline.
thinking here. I know it does support Secure Boot because I've had it on my machine. I'll have to look into that.
So Sean says he doesn't use Secure Boot. He says, nope, I don't use Secure Boot. But anyway, so if you want to do that straw poll real quick, I'm gonna check the results here. I'm gonna rattle it around a little bit. So do you use Secure Boot on at least one of your computers? The number one answer at 52% is no. And second place at 44% is yes. And then we have one vote for not sure what that is. So no votes for Tax Penguin. So I've been using Secure Boot for quite a long time because it's been just a thing with on OpenSUSE for a long time. And as long as the drivers are signed, it'll boot no problem. So if I have unsigned drivers, which sometimes they do play with that, I would have to turn it off.
I have an answer for you on the Secure Boot thing. For
Do tell.
Bazzite. During installation, it says a blue screen will appear giving the option to enroll the signed keys after leaving the Bazzite installer. Enroll mock if you have Secure Boot enabled. If prompted, the password is Universal Blue. Otherwise, continue to boot. Now, there is an after installation method if you had disabled or whatever. There's a command. It's ujust space enroll-secure-boot-key. And then you restart and you type in Universal Blue for the password and it's done.
Okay, so it's you just. I'll talk to you afterward.
Yeah.
All right, that's good to know. So 'cause I'd like to fix that because it's annoying. if I let the machine die, like if I forget to charge it, then I have to go through the process of disabling secure boot, otherwise it won't boot. But I'll fix that.
There might be something specific with that device, right?
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder if does anybody here not use secure boot? No.
I'm pretty sure I do on my machines. I haven't had any conflicts or issues. I'd have to check to be 100% sure, but I don't. I think I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah.
Okay. Just as well thought. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the news Flight Night. Now, the first story I have is not really it's not really news flight. It's not really news, I should say, but it's kind of I was very fascinated by Linux user space this past week. So season 5, episode 14. So bloat, don't float is the name of the episode. And the discussion came down to if you're using was that Linux distributions are too bloated because of things like snaps and flatpaks and whatnot, because of all the additional things they pull in. So I do have a link to the show itself. It's definitely worth a listen, and I would highly recommend it. But I'm gonna go just kind of run this thing down to, well, first I want to stop and say, what do you consider bloat in Linux? Do you just things you don't want, or I guess what is that line for you? Does anybody have that? Have we thought about bloat in a while? I know we'd have somebody on here years ago, maybe it was before it was even Linux Saloon, that would complain that everything is too bloated. I'm like, well, if you don't want it, you can just uninstall it. There's nothing keeping it on your system. So to me, bloat would be something that is unwanted, that is not removable. That would be what I would classify as bloat. So for instance, on my phone, I don't want to have, if I want to remove a specific app, like if you get a phone, one of those not feature phones, but one of those phones that you got on special, and it has Facebook installed and you can't remove it, I would call that bloat, because I can't remove an application that I don't trust from my system. So I don't think any Linux is bloated based on that.
Right.
Leo was it bloat or crapware? I can't remember what both. Both. Uh-huh. Okay.
So
sorry.
I think bloat. I think for most people, when they think of bloat, they think of software or features or like things in the machine that have a negative impact and that are unwanted. So like the crapware that would come with your machine, right? Like that would be bloated. Or you have a desktop that has a whole lot of features that you just never use, you never interact with. They're not negative. Like these features might be useful for someone else. Like someone might say GNOME is bloated because it uses more memory because it has all these other things running and whatnot. And their own value judgment is that I don't engage with any of that. So why do I want it around? And so they might use something that they consider lighter, like a tiling window manager, or God forbid, bless them, XFCE. Like, like if they, they might choose to use something like that. But I think that's the key, is like, to me at least, is that it's. I
think you can go
stuff, right?
Maybe one step lower. So if you're looking at the distro, certain distros make decisions for you, and I think some people, on one hand, to run a computer in a sane way, most of those things that say an Ubuntu or different distros pre-install and services that are running, things like that, like having a printer, stuff like that, like those are things that make sense to have cups installed. And but based on, again, that 96% thing of like, how do most people use a computer? And I think we've flushed that out pretty well. But there are plenty of people who also like the archway, where you don't get anything, very minimal,
where they make the decision, yeah.
Exactly. And then you say, okay, I'm never going to run Bluetooth on here, so I'm just not going to install it. Or I'm never going to, so that could be considered bloat as well, but that's very specific to the person. I don't think many people would argue that the default set of capabilities that something like Ubuntu may be or OpenSUSE or whatever would have is necessarily bloat, because it is quality of life stuff. But
Not
you
without
could
being
call it that.
hyperbolic, yeah.
Right.
Oh, I can see people thinking that certain pieces of software are bloated in the sense that they pull in dependent software that they never use, right? So, like in your example of not using Bluetooth, like if I install a whatever package and it has a dependency on Bluetooth because it just happens to have a Bluetooth related function, well, it's like, well, I didn't want Bluetooth in my machine, like so now, but this, I wanted this software, but it pulls in this other thing, and like I didn't want all that, right? Or in the case of like Flatpaks, people might see like, well, I have these 3 different apps and they have 3 different backend runtimes, like, they might think that's bloated because there's extra bits, but like the runtime, maybe only a small portion of the runtime is what the app needs, but it pulls in the whole runtime, right? And they might be like, that's a lot of unnecessary things that I don't want, kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I
and I
really
think
think it's in the terms of Linux, it's way overblown. Nothing in Linux is really that bloated.
So
right, and things like containerized, or package formats like Flatpak. Yes, of course, if you're installing one piece of software, potentially you're going to get a lot more necessary to download a lot more than the dependencies you might have installing a system package. But that's a sort of a dropping curve, because at first that may seem that way, but then the more that you install and the more you use Flatpak, that actually, ends up going
you
down.
actually end up saving, yeah.
You're
over
reusing
time,
things, exactly. And I think I like the way Leo and Dan looked at disk usage based on using Flatpak versus Snap versus packages, and again, the delta between them was all of 2 gigabytes. And again, and his point being, for the people that haven't heard the show, the point being was basically disks are so big now, and it's not like Windows where you've got 60, 70, 80 gigabytes of space just magically taken up by Windows. Your core installation on a Linux distribution is going to usually be 15, 20. It's going to be pretty small. Yeah, exactly. And so you giving up a few gigabytes of hard disk space for for requirements, or that kind of stuff, it just doesn't have that kind of impact. So bloat at one point, I think, was legit because you had very limited memory, you had very limited disk space. So the resources management aspect of running a computer was a thing. Whereas now, I mean, it's just not as big a deal, I think, as it used to be. So bloat, exactly. So bloat in that case would also have been, I think, a bigger deal than it is today. So,
well, the packages or the applications that they installed on Mac, Windows, and Linux, a couple of varieties of Linux, or a couple of configurations, so they had a Telegram, OBS, Kdenlive, Inkscape, GIMP, Firefox, Element, Discord, and Brave. Now, I would automatically look at that and say, well, Brave is obviously bloat, because why do you use Brave? We can just use Firefox. So,
XFCE is bloat. Yeah.
Anyway, I said because a lot of people like Brave, and I don't get it. But if you want to run Brave, fine, go forth and do great things. So then with snaps, they gave a breakdown of everything that was installed, the snaps that were installed, trying to install those applications, and Flatpak as well. And then keep in mind that in snaps they keep older versions. And I thought Flatpak did as well. The Flatpak will keep some older runtimes in there, for compatibility. Yeah. And so you'll have some of that. But but I don't see that as any different than the C++ redistributables that you get on Windows too. When you have to download those, the
right.
.NET
It's a similar thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
basically.
Dolphin mentions in the chat about like the fact that snaps use the Ubuntu core snap for the base instead of all the runtimes, and that sounds like a good idea until you realize that a portion of that core needs to be a higher version for the app to work properly, and that's why it's great to have the runtimes that Flatpak has, because they're like, if you have an app that's built when GNOME 46 was a thing, well, when 47 and 48, you want to tap into those new features. If they were all part of a monolithic thing, you're just stuck with the old version.
Right.
And so if you can have those like kind of pick and choose different versions. Same thing with like there are runtimes for things like Mango HUD and GameScope and other like gaming things. Or even the NVIDIA driver has its own runtime in Flatpak. So if I get a new version of the NVIDIA driver, I want my runtime to also move forward with my new version, right? And so that's the modularity that helps with that as well.
Plus, I posted this a while back in the Telegram channel, but you can actually control how many versions are kept for Flatpaks.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And snaps, there's actually a command to clean out old snaps also.
Yeah. Also, little known fact, you can roll back Flatpaks.
Yeah. I have a script, Nate. I'll send you if you want. We figure out a way to post it to clean up old snaps. It's just a bash script.
A GUI app suggestion that's actually installed on the Ubuntu stuff is called Warehouse. It's an amazing Flatpak manager. There's like you can roll back and specify versions. You can snapshot Flatpaks if you want to, like snapshot your data for the Flatpak. You can clear out extra data, things left behind, whatever. All that from a nice GUI app called the Warehouse.
Also, just real quickly, something Eric brought up about what he called the quality of life services that a lot of distros install. One thing I've noticed too over the last probably 3 to 4 major versions of most distros, most of them now are masking those services if they're not available on the machine. So they don't really take up any memory, they don't load or anything. But they're there if you need them. So if you don't have Bluetooth on your machine and you load Ubuntu, it will more than likely mask that service for you. And also, anything weird like, I think they had a modem service in there for a while. A damn in there for a while, but all those things get masked, so they're still available, but they're not actually ever loaded. So.
Also on the bloat thing, like if you come to me now, this is my hyperbole here, obviously my exaggeration, but if you come to me and complain about bloat, and then you install 130 gigs for Baldur's Gate 3, I'm gonna look at you a little sideways. Like just saying, right? Like it's like, oh, my system's bloated or whatever. Yeah, tell me about that 89 gig you just installed Cyberpunk with. Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, I think in that regard, I think games are largely bloated, and I only install them on an external USB now.
Incredibly bloated.
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, I don't. I'm sure all the data.
I actually have a technical reason why they're bloated. So, like, for example, I learned this from a talk that Sony folks gave. The Spider-Man game on PS4 has over 200 copies of just mailboxes on your hard drive, because they had to place everything on the hard drive in a way that could be streamed in at any given moment. And so that meant that they had duplicates upon duplicates upon duplicates of all of the data, so that any given moment the hard drive head would be where it needed to be to get the data. That is bloated.
Yes. That seems kind of, I mean, I get it, but it doesn't seem efficient. I guess with an SSD you wouldn't need that, right?
Right, but this is the PS4, which had the rotational hard drive.
Right. Okay.
So with the SSD, that's a completely solved problem.
That's wild. I mean, I like the solution, and when you think about it that way, I guess. But yeah, I get it. Anyway, so I thought it was an interesting discussion of what is bloat, and I think that the and I guess you have to define that for you, because one person's bloat is another person's treasure, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if only phones were like that. Because that's when I think of bloat, I immediately think of, and I don't think it's as bad as it used to be.
No,
in a lot of
definitely not.
cases. with carrier locked phones and all that stuff, especially if you get unlocked phones. But there's still a lot of stuff on there I look at and go, do I really need that? And I'll even play the game of disabling something and see if it breaks.
Yeah.
I think if your device runs poorly because of all the additional garbage that's on there, the cruft, that's probably bloat. But if it's not taking away from your performance, I don't know.
Yeah, if it's not taking away from performance, it's not using data that's going to impact your billing or something like that. It's not compromising your security or privacy in some way. Not eating up space or impeding your ability to use the device to its fullest, then, it's kind of a hard argument.
And if nothing
But
else,
there's some people that are just really hardcore.
And at the very worst, just enable encryption, just enable compression on your Btrfs file system, and then you gain space. Not a lot, but it's significant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I thought
and then you get all kinds of other nice things too.
It's true.
If you're not already using Btrfs, sorry, go ahead.
But isn't everybody? So, so GNOME 49 will require deeper systemd integration. Somebody said systemd is bloat. Was it Leo that said that? I know he was trolling because he does that sort of thing. Anyway, so the upcoming release of GNOME will require systemd for key session features, making it harder for non-systemd distributions to keep pace without major patches. And I can already hear people getting all angry over that. Whatever. So GNOME's relationship with systemd has been debated among Linux users and distributions for years. While the desktop environment hasn't officially required systemd for core functionality, many of its components have leaned heavily on systemd's ecosystem, particularly logind, its session management service. Now GNOME is taking further steps to deepen its integration with systemd, a move that will make running the desktop an alternative in its systems significantly more difficult. To be clear, GNOME hasn't been entirely systemd agnostic for a while. Since 2015, it has relied on logind for sessions and seat management, dropping support for older console kit. However, logind doesn't have to run under systemd. Projects like elogind have followed GNOME to function on systems running OpenRC, RU, run it, or BSD in it. Still, the compatibility has always been somewhat precarious. Most GNOME developers focus on systemd-based setups, and the project's automated testing infrastructure doesn't check non-systemd configurations. As a result, maintaining alternative init support has largely fallen to downstream distributions, often through patches and workarounds. Okay, what's changing now? Two major shifts are coming that will strengthen GNOME's reliance on systemd. So GDM adopts systemd user DB. The GNOME display manager is gaining dependency on systemd's user DB, a dynamic user account management system that the change helps modernize GMD's handling of multi-seat and remote login sessions, replacing what the developers describe as legacy behaviors and straight-up hacks. While temporary fallbacks exist for systems without user DB, using static greeter accounts like GDM greeter, it's only a stopgap. GNOME Session drops its built-in service manager. Since GNOME 3.34, the session manager has used systemd to launch the monitor user service, falling back to an internal device manager only when systemd isn't available. The fallback, however, is now being removed. Originally written for GNOME 2.24, the old service manager is considered outdated, poorly maintained, and is an obstacle to new features like session save restore. So the article goes on to what does this mean for non-systemd users, distros. In short, nothing good. The one things for sure, this move by GNOME is bound to stir up heated debate and frustrate both developers and users for systemd-free distributions like Void, Slackware, Alpine, Chimera, Devuan, etc. While the path forward isn't impossible, it's certainly more complicated. In light of this, the GNOME team suggests a few options: implement systemd user DB replacements. Projects like LongD have already filled similar gaps for logind. A similar effort may be needed for user DB. maintain patches for older GNOME versions. GNOME 48 will continue receiving updates until GNOME 50's release, giving downstream maintainers time to adapt. Still, the writing is on the wall. GNOME is moving toward deeper systemd integration, and while alternative setups won't vanish overnight, they'll require more effort to keep functional. For now, non-systemd users still have some breathing room, but GNOME 50 approaches around March, April 26. The pressure to either adopt systemd or invest in alternative implementations will only grow. Or, of course, you can always just move to a different desktop environment. So I really think this is actually a good move. I guess I have a lot of unpopular opinions, but I have found that the tighter systemd integrations with certain things has actually made has made user experiences a lot better for people. And some things that GNOME does really well is RDP with Wayland and everything else. And I think they're pushing the envelope in the right direction. I'm still, I can use GNOME, but I do think that overall, I think this is going to make for a better GNOME experience, broadly speaking. Unpopular?
I think it's just more advancement in the direction that's already been clearly decided long ago. Yes, there are some distros that don't use it, and they have their reasons for not. Some of them I think are valid, and some of them I think are just simply because they don't want to, which can be valid, I guess. But you can't necessarily fault the prevailing force of most people, most distros using this software, this approach to managing the system, and continuing to go further down that path. I don't think anyone's surprised by this. If it is unpopular to a shrinking minority, that is your right to want to use GNOME without systemd, but it's also your responsibility to make that happen. And if the GNOME project and Fedora and everyone involved decides they want to leverage technology that makes, gives them the capability of moving forward with their roadmap, then I don't know what else to say. That's just how technology works.
Well, I think you have limited developers, you have limited resources, time is short always. People are volunteering to do a lot of this work. And so, the fact that they want to focus on what matters to them as a project, it only makes sense that they do that. It's not like they're saying that they've been giving suggestions as to workarounds, how to get to work with other systems, what would have to be written or whatever to make it work. And it's not going to sway me to use GNOME anymore because I don't like the GNOME experience. But I think that if, they obviously have a vision and I see moving forward in that direction only makes sense.
Yep.
And so I think I have time for one more. We're over time, but I don't care because we didn't have one the last couple of weeks, and I get to see my friends, so I'm excited. And I started late, so Ubuntu server is weighing tmux versus screen and wget versus curl. Has anybody read this article or cared?
I was not aware.
I didn't know that either, but I'm not surprised by tmux, but I guess wget over curl.
I never even heard of screen until I heard about the problems.
Most people had moved on to curl at this point.
Yeah, some of these just seem like foregone conclusions. I just assumed that they had already. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I could just see it breaking legacy scripts that people might have, but
yeah, right. Besides just some custom tooling you might have or whatever.
Just announce the breaking change and give them a chance to rectify it. Yeah.
Well, but it's Linux, so you can just add it.
Yeah, you can put screen back. Yeah, exactly.
So with less than 1 year to go until Ubuntu 26.04 LTS release and trying to get any major changes into 25.10 for extra baking, Ubuntu engineers have been evaluating some Ubuntu server seed changes. Ubuntu engineer John Chittum, sorry if I messed up your name, recently laid out some Ubuntu server seed changes planned for 25.10 as we work toward the Ubuntu 26.04 LTS release, and then potentially some Ubuntu server changes that will come after that all-important long-term support release. Ubuntu Server has offered both Screen and Tmux, while Tmux is expected to become the opinionated install for the terminal multiplexer in Ubuntu Server 25.10. Ubuntu Server 25.10 also expected to demote Bayabu into Ubuntu Universe, since upstream work on it has stalled in recent years and doesn't fit into Ubuntu's current plans. Bayabu is a reminder is a text-based window manager and terminal multiplexer. Oh yeah, I remember that. For post Ubuntu 26.04 LTS, in the Ubuntu 26.10 cycle, they might drop wget from Ubuntu Server by default and put it in supported in favor of using curl for command line downloading needs. This change is still up in the air, and with many scripting around wget and expecting it to be there, this change won't happen until at least 26.10. More details and some of the other possible changes are coming to Ubuntu Server via this Ubuntu discourse. So I'm going to check that out. Hey, Rudy. Have a great evening, too. You probably don't have to, are you going for a run? Or are you just running as a colloquial, I'm leaving? Either way, see ya. So does that affect anybody here? I've only used curl in the command line. I think I used wget for a while, like 20 years ago.
I don't think I've used
Yeah, me
wget
too.
for like a decade. Yeah.
They are, and also to add, I mean, they are like kilobytes in size.
Right.
Right.
So-
yeah.
I mean, it's literally, I mean, unless you're on the world's worst connection, it's a trivial thing.
It's a nothing burger.
Yeah.
I can still see some people, getting up in arms about it. But I think, in my point of view, let's not forget that in the whole discussion of being critical of distros, they have every right to make what they call an opinionated decision. I like how Ubuntu does that. It's their opinionated, choices that they have to make in order to push forward. So I think that's important to remember that distros have to do this stuff, and they have to occasionally piss some people off. It happens.
Right.
I guess that is the point of a distro, is to make opinionated choices.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Otherwise, we'd all be on the same thing, right? Like,
Curl and
all be on
W
Arch. I don't know.
were developed only like a year apart. They were released only like a year apart. It's not one's massively older than the other. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, like, man, kind of forgot what wget was a thing.
Yeah.
You
I
still
see-
see it used online, though. There's time to time, like if you come across some news story, or you'll still see a wget command thrown out there, believe it or not.
I think it was like back in my Mandrake days. I remember like a big push. I could be misremembering this, but I remember like going like a push to go from curl to wget for some things because it was better. But that was 15, 20 years ago. So I don't. That's
It doesn't roll off the tongue to say wget into bash as it does to say curl into bash.
Yeah, it sounds more fun. Leo says he's still using wget over here. So cool.
I can see him seething right now.
He's so angry.
Still gets his music from Kazaa. Even Method laughed at that.
He says he still web gets and I'll die on the digital hill. That's what he says. So yeah, that's cool. I know, to me, I mean, I understand the issue of Screen because there's some issues that Screen had, some security. This is a few weeks ago that I heard about. And I actually didn't know about Screen until all those problems. And I've been using Tmux for a long time. So
Yeah, to be honest, like I only use Tmux because like that's just what I've learned. Like I have no functional reason to dislike Screen because I have very little experience with it.
Right. I think there's even a security issue with, I can't remember if it was curl or wget at one time.
Probably both.
They- Yeah, probably. But I mean, they all have it. Just it's a nothing burger in my opinion. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they take something away and they make it take an extraordinary amount of effort to add it back, if it's even possible, then that's a much bigger issue because then it can be a breaking change for your customization, your scripts or whatever. But if it's literally just adding a line to your script that says, if not, like if you can't find this package, then just install it.
Is there a
You know,
wget snap?
it's just such a, I agree, nothing burger type of thing.
It's a small package, really.
Can I
So
get
script-
wget in a snap?
Maybe a flat pack. So Scriptgo says we use wget at work to grab stuff from the corporate servers, install scripts for patches, etc.
Yeah, that would be the only thing is, and it would just be a default change, right? Like you said, it's trivial to add it again, and pretty much
Exactly.
most I feel like most places are going to have some kind of golden image type process anyway in terms of like
Right.
companies, right? You're going to have an image that already has all your customizations for your organization, so why not just chuck wget in there too? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, it's not a big story, but nerds can get wrapped around the axle very easily about their software.
people can get pedantic, that's for sure.
Yep. We had so much more news topics, but that's right, for another time. Might have time next week. So speaking of next week, may as well get into that housekeeping now. It's an application appetizer, and I had this thought as we were talking about Nessa's experience of switching to Linux and then stumbling onto itch. It's just an idea, but what would you think about different game launchers that are out there? I know of a few, and maybe we could talk about those if there's any others that maybe we don't know about. So things like itch, or I know everyone knows Steam. People may or may not know Heroic, Mini Galaxy, stuff like that. Maybe just talk about some nifty game launchers out there. Does that have any interest to anybody, or is that am I the cheese that stinks alone on this one?
It's probably just me. Yeah.
I would learn a lot. I mean, I think it'd be interesting just to know. I insist that you explain the utility of them.
Sure.
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah, that'd be easy. All right, cool. I guess we'll do that next week. Game launchers, and I know I may include some like retro stuff in there that I use as like retro game launchers as well. I've been playing with one of the not the Steam Deck, my Bazzite deck. I don't know, my Ready One X player, 1X player that I like. The one for PS2. It's pretty dope.
Zoe in chat had an awesome Alanis Morissette joke there. That was pretty awesome.
It's like curl when you're ready to have when you already have wget.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Ooh, Scrubgo says open enterprise server, SUSE all the way. See that? I think we're friends.
Can I wget curl?
You probably can. Maybe not. I don't know. Then I want to do for community free pour. I want to do. So I want to start doing some of these. I get feedback, and I haven't really been talking about the feedback, so I want to start doing that. So just read a couple of them today, and then I'll get to some others later. But I thought it was fun. So I was going through the some of the responses to some of these videos here, and so Johan B 7869 says, "What keyboard are you using, Nate?" And so out here, I'm using a Commodore 64X. It's a whole computer in a bread bin, so it's very vintage looking. And so that's a mechanical keyboard with blue switches. But the keyboard I use at work and in my home office is an 8-bit do retro Commodore 64-like keyboard. And typing on that is so wonderful. Like, I feel spoiled every time I type on it. So that's what I use. Did anybody here use any keyboards that they're proud of, or do they not really
I have a keyboard on the way. It was supposed to be here yesterday, but
Is that
everybody
one you're
knows the
showing me?
curse of FedEx. Yeah, it's a ZSA Moonlander.
Hmm.
It's like the split like keyboard, ortholinear, all that good stuff. Because
Yep.
my hands and wrists cry out in pain every time I type curl or wget. So I need to get a new keyboard. It's a little friendlier. But yeah, that. I'll probably get it Monday because FedEx is what it is. But yeah, looking forward to that. It'll basically be like relearning to type all over again. But yeah.
I'd be interested in hearing about that and like how that retyping journey goes.
I'll let you know in a few months. Yeah.
So Zebedee Boss, everyone remembers Zebedee Boss? He used to be on here. Says talking about the Pika OS episode. He says, interesting show again, as usual, guys. This old man just can't stay up late enough or force myself awake like I did 10 years ago to get on the show. Yeah. I miss Zeb. But totally understandable. But he did say, I just reinstalled Pika OS again in the morning, and that was on the 25th of May. After hearing all the failed live ISOs not working, no NVIDIA version, and it installed just fine. The only workaround, if you can call it that, is I had to plug one monitor into the MB. I'm not sure what that is. Into the MB. Thereby using the AMD
motherboard integrated.
Oh,
graphics.
motherboard. Oh, I felt like Milton Bradley. I was so confused. Thereby using the AMD iGPU. We all know NVIDIA does not work best with Linux, and very few live ISO distros just run with NVIDIA card installed. I really like Pika OS. For me, it works very well. So that's high praise from Zeb. I think I'll do one more here. So Johan B also says, I hate Christmas music. Every year, the same old stuff. Firefox until it dies. All the others suck. So I must have brought up Christmas music. I don't know. Anyway, so I thought it might be fun to like bring up some of these comments. And then let's see. Anyway, so and then also Bernardo Hernandez Henriquez, I don't know, says Michael is an anti-arch. I think he's talking about Michael Tennell being anti-arch. Anyway, I thought it was kind of fun to read some of those. I was going to do more, but it's getting late. So it's time for last call. And anybody here have anything they wanted to bring up before we head out?
I appreciate you guys letting me tell the story of Nessa's experience and kind of sharing that with you. That's pretty awesome.
I was really glad you shared that. I was really excited when you asked if you could. I got really excited. I mean, at the time, I was underneath my sink changing a garbage disposal, so there's that too.
I mean, yeah, at that point, a lot of things sound better, but
yeah.
But yeah, I was appreciate that. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know if you had anything you want to bring up, Eric. Any projects you're working on?
No, not really. I've had a bit of a lull. Just not really doing too much. I replaced my Wi-Fi, just some kind of maintenance type stuff, and yeah, I mean that went pretty well. I'm happy with it. And
what'd you get?
Otherwise, I've got the computer I was talking about when I came on. I've really got to figure out what to do because that thing's living on borrowed time, and it's going to be an unhappy day in my house when that breaks and there's not another one waiting for her. So I got to get on that, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
So real quick, so Don Leckland says there are a few good talks tomorrow morning at Southeast Linux Fest, so if you can register to watch them online. I really wanted to be at Southeast Linux Fest this weekend, but it did not work out. I had a bunch of personal and work things kind of crush me this week. Get off vacation and then just kind of get kicked right in the mouth. So I missed it again this year, and I'm actually very sad about that. But yeah, if you can register to watch them online, please do so. How about you, Ron? How are things up in the Canada?
Canada, doing pretty good. Lots of fires. You guys are getting benefit of that sometimes.
That's actually probably Jinda getting that this time, not me.
We have been getting it.
Oh, you've been getting it in Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin, yeah.
Really, I haven't seen anything here. And can you-
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
when it started, I was in Saskatchewan. It's just like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. And oh my God, you could taste it. It gets between your teeth and yummy. Good
Well, if it-
seasoning.
But if it was like mesquite or hickory, it might not be too bad.
No, it wasn't.
Burnt maple.
Yeah, like sad maple syrup. It's probably what it is. Yeah.
Well, most of our maple syrup, I think, is actually corn syrup mixed with a little bit of maple syrup. That seems to be a scandal that still can continue on forever. Yeah.
I wanted to tap my maple trees at my house this year, but I just ran out of time. Might be fun to do one of these years, tap a maple tree and make my own maple syrup. I'm sure I'd be really angry with myself when I'm done with it, that I wasted that much time. But it'd be worth doing. So what about you, Mike? Anything exciting going on in your world? Are you going into space again?
No.
Flying an SR-71 Blackbird?
No, I'm still working on Marklight, trying to
good.
get the packaging done on that. I ran into some stumbling blocks with the snap and the flat pack, so I'm trying to get those worked out. And as soon as that's done, it'll be ready to release.
Sweet.
So,
When you get that done, I really would like to have you talk about that. Do a little focus on that. So it's exciting.
I put the URL in the chat of the
I will put that in the chat.
yeah.
So we can check it out. Yes.
I'm hoping in the next few weeks to have it finished up. So.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. I like when people create things. It gets me all excited. And Steve's very own, yes, making your own maple syrup is a sticky job, but somebody has to do it. Because you can't have pancakes without syrup or waffles. That's what waffles are made for syrup. Little pockets, you know. That's delicious. Jinda,
Yes.
thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much, Nate.
You were a little rowdy again this evening, but you know,
Yeah, I'm always out of control, I know.
always cutting off Adam, you know.
Yeah. I apologize drastically for my behavior again at once, as usual.
Hey,
We've
Dave,
come to expect it. It's fine.
you need to make him take his calm down meds on camera so everybody can see it. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
we'll do that. Yeah, take
Tell me
it
the
Yeah.
tongue. Make sure you swallow them.
and not spit them out. Well, thanks for being here, Jinda. And Adam,
Oh,
thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
having me.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I really enjoyed it.
Sure, dude. And thank NASA for being awesome
For making
and
the
giving me
plunge.
key lime pie.
Yeah, thanks
Keelan.
her for all.
The key lime pie sounds great.
Bye.
I'll let you know if any more computers pop up on any other services since she started using Linux. So.
Sounds good. All right, I have a website called cubanlate.com if you want to check out things that I haven't written there. If you check out things that I have written on there, yeah, please do. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting, the YouTube stream, as well as for everyone watching the show after the fact and leaving comments on the shows themselves. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye bye.
Bye.